Welcome, everyone, to the Two Bros Wrestling Show. As you can see, we're just one bro, at least right now. Got a special guest coming up. I promise we'll get to two. You want to stick around for that? We don't have a lot of guests. Unfortunately, Doug is not able to join us tonight, a little bit under the weather, so get well soon, Doug. I think he celebrated too much on Wednesday this week when for Valentine's Day we did wrestling bromances. I think he went too hard on the bromance and is now under the weather because of it. But yeah, get well soon, Doug, and stay tuned, everybody, for a special guest when it comes to our main event. Our main event topic tonight, of course, is Elimination Chamber preview. We're going to Australia for the Elimination Chamber, and we're going to go through each match, give predictions, what we think is going to happen, how this is going to affect the road to WrestleMania. But before we do all of that, we have an opening bell. Big news this week probably has to do with Cody, Roman, the whole mess we got going on with The Rock involved. But because we're going to be talking about that in our main event topic, that's not where I'm going to lead the news tonight. I'll save that and talk about that when we talk about the pay-per-view itself. That part is going to be fun, right? We're going to have a lot of fun with that. Before we get to the fun, light entertainment part of things, gotta admit, the news is a little bit dark this week, so hang with us through some of this darkness, but some things we need to report upon. Obviously, top story. There's a lot that could be the potential top stories this week, but I'm going to start with the latest on the Vince McMahon sex scandal. Obviously, again, heavy topic. No real updates as far as the lawsuit itself goes. However, it was revealed this past week that former WWE star Ashley Massaro had claimed Vince McMahon sexually harassed her and other WWE female stars. This revelation came forth as a result of a sworn affidavit that had never been released, and it is one in which Massaro made these allegations. The reason that the information had been previously unknown is that the affidavit was related to a concussion lawsuit. You may remember a group of wrestlers that went together to basically talk about the effects of concussions and how it had affected their lives, and basically did a lawsuit collectively against WWE. That lawsuit against those former wrestlers, or with those former wrestlers against their former employer, was dismissed in 2018. But Massaro's lawyers had kept and this week released for the very first time snippets of the sworn affidavit. And based on everything that's been going on with Vince, that's why the timing of releasing this now, they thought that she would want that to happen. It wasn't relevant to the concussion lawsuit, but it's certainly, her allegations are relevant today. In this transcript, Massaro, she details observing Vince making out with other female wrestlers in the locker room. She claimed Vince never approached her up until the point in time that she appeared in Playboy. After that, she said that Vince repeatedly attempted to get her to join him after hours, after shows, at the bar. Please come up to my hotel room, that sort of thing. She did not know what to do. She took her issues to Kevin Dunn, who we have reported here recently left WWE at the beginning of this last year, actually was dismissed. He was a lieutenant of Vince for decades. You'd think that this kind of allegation would, you're basically talking about, you're going to HR, you're going as high as it can about what can I do about this Vince McMahon situation. And according, again, to this sworn affidavit, the advice that Ashley received from Kevin Dunn was pretend to be sick. Obviously, pretending to be sick is not going to stop anyone. It may delay them. And that is exactly what Ashley Massaro claims happened, is that Vince left her alone for a little while, started back up again. She finally had to just turn him down cold. And then when she did that, this is when she claims that the retribution started. Typically, it's creative that would write the shows. It's famous, of course, that Vince McMahon tears up scripts, rewrites scripts, has final approval, gives the big ideas, but he wasn't typically scripting the first drafts. Ashley Massaro claims, though, that he began writing her promos, and she was the only one who he would write only her promos, and did so in a way that was demeaning, putting her in storylines, she said, that were guaranteed to embarrass her. Essentially, she claims he was trying to ruin her career and basically just be petty by the fact that she would not have sex with him. Eventually, Massaro was released and never really worked much again. She was a WWE diva. For those of you who've been fans for a while, you might remember her from the early 2000s. She was there for 3 years, 2005 until 2008. She died in 2019 from an apparent suicide. So definitely, again, dark story with a dark end. But this many years later, her attorneys thought it was important to bring out these allegations against Vince, considering the current climate. I'm sure this sort of thing, being a sworn affidavit, will end up being used in the lawsuit against Vince McMahon that is happening currently. We'll obviously keep following that here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. Moving on, again, more dark news, and this is another for old school fans. You'd have to be even more of an old school fan, probably the age of Doug and I, to remember Billy Jack Haynes. Billy Jack was a star in the 80s. He had a cup of coffee with WWE 2 or 3 years, but really his prime years were in the National Wrestling Alliance. He started out in the Pacific Northwest territory of the NWA. He moved on to Florida Championship Wrestling, and then, of course, had his time in WWE, where he had a decent run. He appeared on WrestleMania 3. If you do remember Billy Jack Haynes, you probably have not thought of him in a while. But unfortunately, he made some news this week, and I say unfortunately because the news he made was not good. 70 years old now. He is being held for murder. He was arrested after reports of gunshots, and when police reported to the home that Billy Jack was in at the time in Portland, Oregon, there was a bit of a standoff, and Billy Jack would not listen to the police. He would not come out. And so it took several hours, but when police finally made their way into the home, they found a dead body, and the deceased was identified as the wife of Billy Jack Haynes, 85 years old, Jeanette Beecraft, I think was how you would pronounce her name. But the medical examiner did rule that this was a homicide by gunshot. So we will, again, as with our top story, we'll keep tabs on this one once Billy Jack goes to trial for murder. Last show, I talked about the firing of a top executive with Stardom. So this week, and what's really even more shocking news, TNA president Scott D'Amore has been relieved of his duties. Anthem Sports and Entertainment, which is the company that owns TNA, apparently fired D'Amore because of his insistence that the group invest more into the show's production and talent, as well as his pushes for trying to get on a new network that will see more people. When I say this release is shocking, it's because D'Amore has been widely hailed as the architect of TNA's recent resurgence. Creatively, they've been on a really good streak these last few years. Many wrestling writers voted for D'Amore as 2023's Booker of the Year. He's brought in Okada. He had Naomi resurrected her career as a singles wrestler outside of WWE when she walked away. He's done a lot with what little he had to work with, and this creative resurgence has been accompanied by a increase in interest from the fans as well. If the reports for why the firing happened are true, it seems only natural that, D'Amore would be wanting to capitalize on the creative momentum that they had going by getting his employer to invest more in the product. But if these, again, reports are to be true, apparently TNA's parent company is just fine doing things as they are currently being done and doing them as inexpensively as possible. And that meant no increase in budget and also meant no Scott D'Amore, I guess, saving money on that contract. If you want all that, we'll just get rid of you, which is what they did. So apparently there was shock, and morale in the locker room is not great because Scott D'Amore was extremely well liked. A further report that has come out since this firing, which was about a week and a half ago now, is that D'Amore's firing as president was preceded by an attempt on D'Amore's parts to purchase TNA outright from Anthem. And reportedly, Anthem considered it a very serious offer from D'Amore, and D'Amore apparently had financial backing to make it happen, but ultimately, Anthem turned him down and then proceeded to let him go. To replace D'Amore, TNA has appointed an Anthony Chacon, I believe is how that would be pronounced. Anthony is not from the world of wrestling. He is already in management at Anthem's entertainment division. So now the wrestling operations are going to just report under him as well. Hopefully Tony Khan is watching this. Tony, who could use a full-time creative assist, would be wise to pick up Scott D'Amore. Some more surprising firing news. I told you, the news is dark this week. And I hated this one too because I am a fan of Matt Camp. He has been released by WWE. Camp was hired in 2019, has been a jack of all trades really for WWE. I don't know what more you could expect someone to do. He served as host of or co-host of shows like The Bump and Raw Talk, Talking Smack. He does a lot with the WWE, well, former WWE network, but the network portion of Peacock right now. He was oftentimes a regular panelist on the premium live event kickoff shows. So there's no really report or word as to why the firing, especially since, just like with D'Amore and TNA, Camp was reportedly very well liked backstage. Hopefully you land on your feet, Matt Camp. Hang in there. Enjoy your work. Again, Tony Khan, pick up the phone. You hire everybody else. A couple of good talents out there on the creative side. Let's go to some more positive news. Enough of firings and death and sex scandals. Let's talk some hirings, people getting jobs. Let's say a congratulations to Rocky Romero, who has officially joined AEW's front office. See, I told you, Tony Khan hires everybody. Romero, who occasionally still wrestles for both AEW as well as New Japan Pro Wrestling, has a long history as an office creative from his time in New Japan, which, by the way, Romero will continue to work for in the front office as well. He's also the driving force of the relationship between AEW and CMLL that you're seeing play out on screen right now. Romero is the one that kind of owns that relationship with the Mexican promotion. And as if all that isn't enough, he is also currently the MLW middleweight champion. So congrats to Rocky for apparently taking all the wrestling jobs out there. Seriously, though, congrats to Rocky Romero. Happy for his success. And we're going to close the opening bell this week with news of the WWE experience. What is that, you say? Well, as we've all known for a while now, WWE has flirted with the idea of a physical Hall of Fame. This is not a physical Hall of Fame, but it's probably the closest we've come to one since WWE had their WWE New York, which was a physical store / attraction in New York City. So in the press materials for WWE Experience, they called it an immersive experience for fans, which to me means probably the code of we got a lot of virtual reality here. For example, they are going to have the WWE Superdome, which is something that's going to give fans a chance to be in this fully immersive arena. And then they also mentioned creating your own entrances, making yourself a character so that you are the WWE superstar and you get to come down the ramp. It sounds like some of the things that they've done at like WrestleMania Access in prior years, and that includes the inclusion of the Undertaker's graveyard, which I know is something that has been a feature of some of those WrestleMania events in the past. It basically sounds like an escape room, just without the room. You're trying to get out of the Undertaker's graveyard. And then, of course, don't forget to exit through the gift shop after you have a chance to see all the shiny belts, which there is a crown jewel, as they call it, display of all these titles. I'm sure they will sell you one in the WWE store on the way out. So with all of this, you might be asking yourself, where is the WWE experience? Is it in New York? Is it in Connecticut, where the corporate home offices are, or Orlando, Tampa, one of those areas that fans tend to congregate for? The WWE likes to do their big events at. No. One guess as to where it is, and you probably, if you haven't heard, can probably guess. Yes, I am about to say Saudi Arabia. It is in Riyadh. It is notable that the news release refers to it as the first WWE experience, which I don't know if it's going to be a Planet Hollywood, Hard Rock kind of situation that they have here, but it really isn't a surprise that they have decided to do the first of these things in Saudi Arabia, considering their relationship with the kingdom right now. With that, we're done with the opening bell. Give me 1 second of pause, and I'm going to bring on a special guest to join me for our main event. Presto changeo. I told you, we have a guest.
Poof.
Not Doug on the Two Bros Wrestling Show this week.
No, I wear this hat actually to hide my illustrious head of hair so as to not make Doug jealous.
I would like to welcome Jer to the Two Bros Wrestling Show.
Hello.
I guess it's maybe backwards since, this week Two Bros have done 2 shows this week. One on Valentine's Day, in which my wife did not appear, and then an Elimination Chamber preview in which my wife Jer will appear. But I got to give you credit anyway that we did Wrestling Bromance. And if you didn't see it, it's there in the archives. Appreciate the feedback on that. That was your idea. So, she knows how I look for topics. And when she knew I was looking for a Valentine's topic, she threw that one out there.
Romances.
It worked out well, other than making Doug sick. But we soldier on, and appreciate you filling in. Much better looking with
slightly still sick though.
Yeah, it's something about every appearance that you've had on the Two Bros Wrestling Show, you have been ill. So no, she's not always ill. She just is. If you're watching the Two Bros Wrestling,
I just play one on TV.
That's right. But we are here on our main event tonight to talk Elimination Chamber.
That's right. What a better time to talk about elimination than right now with the multiple eliminations that's going on in the WWE, from firings to multiple injuries. We have, it's a good time of year to talk Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, you must have overheard some of the news segment. Again, that was the dark part. This is the fun part.
That's right. Well, let's talk about the fun part. So, I think that, this is going to be a really different pay-per-view. So tell us a little bit about what fans should know about why this is a different pay-per-view.
This one is definitely a different pay-per-view because we're going to Perth. Australia obviously has hosted a special event. I don't think at the time they called it a premium live event. It was kind of like a one-off. We all know that they do the regular pay-per-views now from Saudi Arabia, but WWE is definitely on a international strategy of expanding, beyond just the UK, which they've had a couple of recent pay-per-views at. But now they're definitely going all in. Like, I think we got Berlin scheduled this year. I think they're doing France, but this is the start. So what you need to know is that it is airing live on Peacock, which, depending on where you're watching the Two Bros Wrestling Show, your time zone. But for us, like here in the East Coast, 5 a.m. in the morning. So if you want to see it live, you're going to have to set your clock early. If you're on the West Coast, just stay up late. It's on at 2 a.m. But definitely factor that in. This will be one that I will not be watching live. But
wow.
But I will be watching. But yes, make sure for those who don't want spoilers, don't just open up your phones on Saturday morning. Watch the pay-per-view first.
Watch the pay-per-view live where it's being aired. Well, that's really interesting. So this particular pay-per-view only has 4 matches also.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of light. Do you think anything's going to be added before then?
It is kind of light, but this is Elimination Chamber, so we'll get 2 chamber matches, and those, it's kind of like when we previewed the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
You have 2 Rumble matches; they're going to go an hour each. They eat up almost all the pay-per-view, so I don't know that they're going to add too much more. You got 2 Elimination Chamber matches on this card. They will probably each will go 45 minutes at least. But still, 4 matches, can you squeeze a 5th in? I think it's possible. I think if they do, there's definitely a storyline developing between Gunther and main event Jey Uso. I guess the question is, do they do that match now? Do they pull the trigger on that now? Or is this something we're going to stretch out to WrestleMania? Gunther was reportedly supposed to be facing Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania until Brock got caught up in the Vince sex scandal that's overshadowing everything. But if they give Gunther something to do, I think Jey Uso and Gunther is a likely add. I don't think we'll get more than 1 more match, though. I don't think this card can hold 6.
So I have a question for you. So on Wednesday night, Bobby Lashley beat Bronson Reed in an Elimination Chamber match, right? Bronson Reed, native Australian. Do you think we try to push him into his home country in some ways to make the natives happy?
If I was Bronson, I would want to be on this card. But yeah, maybe they have a kickoff match, but it's been a while since the WWE has done that. But I know that Bronson, if he can find his way onto the card or talk his way onto the card, the locals would be happy to see.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
There's not a natural path for him there right now, unless they just add something else or he replaces somebody. You never know.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Undisputed Tag Team Championship match, the Judgment Day versus Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. What are your thoughts on that one? What are your predictions?
The Judgment Day have had a good run. I think if we see and this is tipping my hat as to my other predictions, but if we see a title change on this card, I believe this is where it'll be. Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, which I'm so happy I can say Pete Dunne, and we're not saying Butch anymore. Yeah. Pete Dunne gets his name back. I know they have not been a team for very long on WWE television. People still think of the Brawling Brutes and Butch and all, but I don't know. There's something about the Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne combo that I think is resonating with fans, and maybe I'm just fanboying out here because I like them so well. Judgment Day has held those titles for a while. I know it kind of fits their story to all be, holding so much gold right now, but I think that this might be the title change. I think that we might get, Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne.
I agree with you. I think someone has to fall. Somebody out of Judgment Day is going to have to take a fall, and I don't think that it's obviously going to be Tribal Chief and everything that's going on there.
Well, that's the bloodline,
and that's true.
Yeah.
I give my mix-ups. So, so let's talk about then. Let's talk about Judgment Day and Rhea Ripley and her match with.
She's the one who's not going to fall. That's why I think that.
Yeah, I agree.
If anybody's going to lose, it will be the tag team champs, because Rhea, also from Down Under. So
yeah.
Actually, did I get that right?
I'm not sure.
Or she's from England, but anyway, she's not. Rhea Ripley is not losing to Nia Jax.
I think Rhea Ripley's one of the best performers we've seen in the WWE for a long time. She's got so much talent and charisma. which Nia Jax does not have.
Well, Doug and I have been not so kind to Nia on this show. So it's not just us.
It's not just you. Yeah.
Nia Jax is the return that no one asked for.
Yeah. That's true.
But I will, will say that regardless of one's opinion of her, the way that they booked her at Royal Rumble was smart. I mean, if you were pushing someone to be a beast, you have her have a Rumble appearance the way that Nia Jax had a Rumble appearance. It built her up for this match. But this is it. I mean, this is the pass through for Rhea Ripley to get to WrestleMania against a credible opponent. And they've made Nia Jax a credible opponent, regardless of how we feel about her.
Yeah.
But Rhea Ripley is going to be one of the headline matches on WrestleMania. You're right. She's one of the best performers, male or female, on the roster right now. She's a big deal. She's going to be in a marquee matchup at Mania holding this title. She gets through Nia Jax rather easily. Well, maybe not rather easily. They'll Rhea Ripley will make Nia Jax probably look better than Nia Jax has reason to look. Yeah. But then this will continue. Nia Jax will step to the side.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Rhea's she's a shooting star, I think, in the organization. I think she's gonna continue.
Yeah, whether or not she maintains her title at WrestleMania, that's a whole other question. But she's not losing at Elimination Chamber. She's not losing in Perth, Australia, to Nia Jax. I would write it down, and if I'm wrong, will call me on it when we do the review show. But I'll eat my words. But there's no way. If there is an in the bag match on this card, this is the one that's in the bag. Like, no way in the world that Nia Jax wins this one.
That's why, and I apologize my mistake earlier. That's why I'm thinking Damian Priest and Finn Balor are more likely to fall to bait and done, because I could see them taking that fall, but I don't see Rhea Ripley doing it. She out of the Judgment Day, she's going to continue on. But I think the men's match, we might see that. So let's talk about the women's Elimination Chamber then, since we're talking about the ladies match. So we've got Becky Lynch, Liv Morgan, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, and then an opponent to be determined.
We got one more entrant.
So who do we think fills that empty spot?
So first, this is the order that the matches are in the way of importance, but I think in the actual order of the card, this is going to be a Royal Rumble situation. I think that they'll keep the two matches apart from each other. One will open and one will close. I think we'll have an opening Elimination Chamber match and a closing Elimination Chamber match. I think that the women will probably be the opening contest, but that open spot is supposed to be filled on Raw. They're going to do a last chance battle royal. So some of the folks who have already been eliminated may be part. Some of the announced names are people like your Zoe Starks. One name that has not been announced that I would have thought might be what they were thinking is Jade Cargill. We're still waiting on, after her Rumble appearance made a lot of news. There was a lot of question as to if she would find herself in the Elimination Chamber. The reports are that she was originally intended to be part of this, but those plans have changed. Now, there's not been any word as to why, but just predicting in my mind why I think that is. We've talked before on the show that Jade has $1 million look, but WWE was probably thinking she needed a little bit of ring work, that she was a bit green, and she was in AEW. She was very green. They pushed her, even though she, didn't have a huge skill set to start. She got much, much better. So I have to think she's about ready. They probably teased her at Rumble, thinking that she could work her way into a Mania match. And this would have been the way to do it. So if those reports are true and it's not Jade Cargill, I don't know who it would be. And it could be just about anybody, and I don't think it would matter. But if it ends up being Jade Cargill and she's in that battle royal, if she's in that battle royal, she wins the battle royal. which means she's in the match. If she's in this match, she's winning and going to Mania, and it'll be Powerhouse versus Powerhouse, Rhea Ripley versus Jade Cargill, which is not seen marquee matchup. But if she does make it, Jade, into this match, she has to win it, because there's no way in the world they're protecting her the way that they are. There's no way in the world they're letting her take a pinfall and get eliminated in an Elimination Chamber match. She's not going to be taking the pinfall for a while. So if she's in it, she wins it. If she's not in it, as far as who wins this one, Tiffany Stratton is a, she's a shooting star, but she's too new. Naomi is a nice return, but I don't know if she returns and goes straight to the main event of Mania. Take the safe route. Biggest star here is Becky Lynch. And she has a bit of a storyline kind of going with Rhea already. She's, previewed it. Dark horse, I'd say if it's not Becky, it's not a dark horse. I'd say your number 2 most likely, if there's no Jade Cargill. But Bianca, again, you'd end up similar to what you'd have if Jade was in there as far as Powerhouse versus Powerhouse. Don't know that we've really seen Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair on the big stage like this at Mania. And again, that is what this is. The Elimination Chamber is all about setting the tone for WrestleMania, this being the last stop on that road. And this, of course, being who wins this match is the person that gets the world champion. And Rhea Ripley will be your world champion. And I'm guessing Becky Lynch.
All right. I think it's probably a good prediction. It seems to me like the men's match we're going to talk about next has is fairly stacked with some heavyweights in terms of Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, his return, and Kevin Owens. Then we've got LA Knight and then Logan Paul. Yeah, so Logan Paul's almost the TBD to me of the women's match. It's like, is that your toss away character?
He's holding a title right now anyway, and I know his promo this past week on Raw was, I can take this title and then also position myself to have 2 belts when I win Elimination Chamber and then go on to main event WrestleMania and beat Seth Rollins, and that's not happening.
Yeah,
I mean, you can go ahead and take both Logan and Kevin Owens out of this, and I wouldn't be surprised if the 2 of them manage to take one another out, because they kind of have a program going that I think might continue on to Mania. The rest, though, I think it's interesting because this is setting up the other main event. And as we've reported extensively on the Two Bros Wrestling Show, that main event has shifted significantly from right before Royal Rumble to the outcome of Royal Rumble. Are there more curveballs on the way? This is the last pay-per-view, so they kind of start to need to settle some things in stone. Drew McIntyre has a storyline. The reason he has been inserted into the Seth Rollins situation, I think that is the obvious choice. But you also have Randy Orton, who is a legend who recently returned. That's a big name. Orton versus Seth Rollins. You could make a WrestleMania main event worthy match out of that. The most over man in all of this is LA Knight. And I would want to lean towards LA Knight having something really big on the WrestleMania card as sort of a, appreciation for the year that he's had. Problem there is that Seth Rollins is pretty much on the face side right now, and LA Knight is as well. Over with the fans. The fans in that scenario would have to figure out who they're cheering for. Yeah. So I know it's not, and I shouldn't say it's not exciting. Elimination Chamber matches are going to be really exciting, but I know I predicted Becky as the obvious choice, most likely to win. It would kind of be cool to be given a curveball there. Sometimes, though, the most expected is most expected for a reason. Sometimes just a surprise for the sake of surprise isn't worthwhile. Drew McIntyre may be the obvious choice when you look at this list. I think they'll go with the obvious choice here. And I think Drew McIntyre, who reportedly has a contract now extended beyond WrestleMania. There was some worry in the news that his contract was expiring and he hadn't re-signed. If he has actually re-signed, he's playing a good heel right now. He would make a good foil for Seth Rollins.
All right. That sounds good. Well, how much of this do you think is going to end up being affected by the Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes appearance with Grayson Waller effects? You think that's going to end up setting the stage? Like that's going to be the platform?
So I wanted to make sure we saved that for last to talk about because, typically those talk show segments on a pay-per-view are sort of throwaways. This one is not, because this one has the two stars who otherwise would not be appearing on the show, but who are guaranteed to be main event status at WrestleMania. This is, I think, the segment that they will use if there's going to be any storyline development regarding all the mess that's been going on with The Rock and Roman and Cody. It will happen here because Roman ain't going to Australia. He might. The Rock is not going to Australia. But you'll get Seth and Cody in this segment. But those four men are the ones who have sort of overturned the apple cart. It's been pretty obvious that the original plan was switched right in front of our eyes. Like we saw Cody Rhodes win the Royal Rumble, and yet we know now that The Rock had already made a deal with WWE that match was going to be his. And why in the world they made that mess for themselves if they already knew which way it was going to go? Why didn't they just let Rock win the Royal Rumble and people would not have had the, we want Cody and then Rock with the Cody crybabies. So there was news this week. I previewed it in our news segment at the start that I was going to save it for this, but reportedly The Rock gave back the main event to Cody Rhodes, that it was his choice. And again, I don't know that there was really much of a choice once you heard those reactions, but I do think that the WWE was genuinely surprised. The Rock was genuinely surprised by the response he got. But apparently it took, with all the power he has now, him deciding that, I want to go heel. Apparently that was his decision. And we can work this out if we give the match, switch it back to Cody. I
don't think he had much of a choice to go heel. I mean, he's been in that predicament before. And
well, when you get the Rocky Sucks
worked out pretty good for him. So
I think that Rock makes a great
I think he's best as
I kind of like it. I mean, the promo he gave on SmackDown this week, I think just shows that once he's back in the swing of WWE, which he is full on now. Once you saw that press conference a week and a half ago and then SmackDown, you realize he is back in top form. Now, what does that look like in the ring at 51 years old? We don't know. But on the mic, still the great one. Again, he's not going to be on the Australian card, but I do think that we get storyline development there. We got Seth, you got Cody. You know that The Rock as a heel has aligned with his cousin Roman. I'm going to say that what we get is Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins more formal, putting their alliance together to go against Rock and Roman. There are rumors that now will be night one's main event, is that The Rock and Roman Reigns will take on Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes on night one of WrestleMania, which would, of course, leave for night two, Roman and Cody doing double duty, headlining then as well. We'll obviously have a lot more on this if that ends up being what occurs. My big question, though, and marquee matches are marquee matches. You take them when you can get them. But if you have Roman Reigns headlining both nights of WrestleMania, what does that mean for the women?
Yeah.
Are they edged out of that spot?
And I mean, perhaps that's why you have this, to be announced participant in the women's match, just to try to throw that in and, throw in a new curveball or something new to into the mix. Maybe they,
I mean, if you end up with Jade Cargill versus Rhea Ripley, you can headline WrestleMania with that. But then again, WWE plays fast and loose with this whole idea of main event. To me, main event is whatever goes on last. They'll say, our triple main event tonight, and that means the last 3 matches are all main event. I don't know, though, especially if they go with, if you got The Rock, he's main event.
Yeah,
he's going on last. There's no way in the world anything goes on last on night 2 other than Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, if that's where they land.
Right.
Whatever the Roman Reigns match is, if they were to pivot and it's Roman Reigns versus The Rock, that is the last match on the last night of WrestleMania. You end the whole thing on
right.
that. So I do think that this probably means that the women will be relegated to a main event, quote unquote, that isn't the actual main event. But they've been there before, which, just kind of the way that it worked out last year as well with, the Sami Zayn storyline getting main event on night 1. But yeah, we'll know a whole lot more next week. We'll know a whole lot more early in the morning, I guess, on Saturday, I should say. But we will obviously be reviewing everything that happens at Elimination Chamber on our show next week. I'm going to get to my big finish here.
And I won't look like this.
No, you'll have taken off the scarf, the boggin there, and
all that'll be gone. I'll be taller.
You have a little gray hair,
older.
We do hope that Doug gets well, and see, Doug, she's
better, my friend.
She's not feeling well, and she managed to pull off. You're much tougher.
Well, but I'm on day 2 of what Doug has got on day 1 of. I'm on day 3 of it, actually.
Well,
so
it
gets better.
I would just prefer to acknowledge how much tougher than Doug that you are.
Well, we all know that.
Thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate it. Back on the Raw set here. Back to just Kevin. Want to hit that big finish now. Thank you, Dojair, for joining us for the main event. Big finish time. Botch of the week. I'd like to start on the negative so that I can end on the positive, but we got to get this one in. I mentioned it, of course, in our opening bell about TNA dismissing Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore's relationship with TNA goes back to the Team Canada days. We're talking like early TNA. And he has been a loyal soldier, an executive, and as president, he obviously has resurrected the brand to the point that fans were talking about TNA. It wasn't just an afterthought. And he had the audacity to want his employers to take the work that he has done and invest in it. That's what got him fired. Anthem, I understand you're a business. Sometimes business and creative, the art doesn't match the bottom line. But Scott D'Amore deserved more loyalty than being dismissed. Maybe you don't give him what he wants. You tell him the reasons why it's not possible, and then you find a way to move on together. But to take someone's efforts to continue to improve what he had already improved on your behalf, and then not just to let him go, but to replace him with an executive at Anthem who has no wrestling experience. As we know from history, remember your WCW, when you put people in charge that do not know a thing about professional wrestling, it tends to not end well. Bean counters are fine to have on board with wrestling creatives, but if it is the corporation that is making all the decisions without the input of wrestling relations, I worry that the creative run that TNA has been on This resurgence of theirs may be coming to an end, all because of saving a few dollars and cents. Again, I mentioned it in our opening bell segment. I hope Tony Khan does make a phone call to Scott. We joke here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show a lot about Tony Khan can't hire anybody, or excuse me, Tony Khan can't hire everybody, which is true. But if you watched our show on how we suggest fixing AEW, Tony needs some help on the back office and creative end. And TNA has just on a silver platter handed you someone who has had a recent track record of success. So I hope that that does occur and that Scott D'Amore can join the AEW office. But Botch, and shame on you, Anthem Sports. You had a good thing going, and who knows where it goes from here. Performance of the week. What can I say that we didn't talk about, Jer and I, about The Rock? 51 years old, sure. Will he be able to pull off a WrestleMania level match? Well, maybe now that he doesn't have to take on his cousin. Maybe if it is a tag match where he can catch his breath, I'm sure he will put on a passable performance. The Rock was never known for his in-ring work. He wasn't a technical master. He was not bad by any means. But it's easy to forget, I think, just because of what a big star he is and the fact that he is the most successful person to ever come out of the world of pro wrestling, that his actual in-ring career was not all that long. We remember The Rock and people praise The Rock for his impact, and that was primarily made on the microphone. Those skills have not diminished at all. That has been readily apparent in every opportunity he has had to cut a promo since his return. It is definitely must-see TV when you find out that The Rock is going to be on to see what he says, especially as heel Rock. This may not be the way they mapped it out to begin with, but the way that it's going has been nothing less than intriguing, and a lot of that rests on the shoulders and the work that The Rock has done on the microphone. Say what you want about the backstage maneuverings, him joining the TKO board and making as contingent to that, taking a main event spot away from Cody Rhodes. All that, for what we know now, it does seem to be real life playing out. But also give the man credit for being a wise businessman. He understood that they had made an error in judgment, and he course corrected, and then did so, gave the main event back to Cody, which is where it rightfully belonged. Maybe you don't pat yourself on the back too much for doing the right thing, but I want to give the kudos to him for doing that. But mostly he is my performer of the week because that promo just shows that there's still money in The Rock being at WrestleMania. There's still time to do Rock versus Roman if that is not the plan this year. We will get there. And it might not be the worst thing in the grand scheme of things if The Rock gets some of the ring rust off in a tag team match. But wherever it goes, we're all in, right? We're all hooked on this storyline right now. And a lot of that has to do with the Rock being inserted into the WWE scene as a heel. Gave a great promo, my performer of the week. Match of the week? I'm going with the women on AEW, who the whole women's division has been so much better over the last couple of months. It's almost been night and day. We complained on the show regularly about Tony Khan not giving enough attention to his women's division. They're two of the brightest lights, though, in that division that are on the young side, are up-and-comers, weren't established names just a year or two ago. People didn't know who they were. They know who they are now, but both Willow and Sky Blue are two of the best young performers in the business today. They had a match on Dynamite that is definitely worth seeing. The two had been tag team partners a lot through the last couple of years, and to see them work against each other and put on a very compelling match, I think the Sky no pun intended here, but the sky is definitely the limit for both of these two. There was no losers in this contest. They both showed once again why the wrestling world is high on each lady in that match. But if you didn't see it, definitely go check it out. And also check it out, Two Bros Wrestling Show, wrapping up our preview edition of Elimination Chamber. When we have a preview, you know what that means. It comes next. Doug and I, please get well, Doug. We'll be back next week. If you watch us live, that's Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook. Shortly after that live airing, we are on YouTube. Obviously, all of our shows are on demand on both our channels. Definitely give us a like and subscribe if you like what you hear. If you disagree with us, let us know that as well. Put it in the comments. We feed off of your engagement and your feedback. So do us a solid and give us that thumbs up and give us a couple of comments. We will respond to you. You see our schedule there scrolling on the bottom of the screen right now. We hope that you join us again next week. Once again, I would like to thank my wife, Jer, for filling in for Doug this week. Doug, get well soon. Everyone else, have a great week. Tune in to Elimination Chamber. We'll see you right back here next Sunday.